Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Man City are in crisis. There's no way of getting around it. 4 losses in a row for the first time in Pep Guardiola's history. There's a lot of different reasons as to why it might be happening, and we're going to go through that today. The main one that I'm probably going to look at is Kovacic and obviously the Rodri substitution and how that's obviously developing. Then we're going to look at some of the build-up play that Man City are trying to develop, because at the minute it's just not working, and there's a few different reasons as to why that is. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. We're going to be doing a few more of these as the season progresses, mostly around Liverpool, as that's obviously my team. But yeah, let's get into it. So, first things first, we're actually going to look at Kovacic and the type of player that he is. Obviously, since Rodri has been out injured, Kovacic is having to step up. He's playing a lot more minutes than what we would usually see. And don't get it twisted, lads. Kovacic is a really, really good footballer, but he has a lot of different attributes that are very different to what Rodri offers this Man City team. So, if you see here, this is the very first game Man City played against Chelsea. Straight away, we obviously know what Kovacic is going to do. He's going to pick up the ball a little bit more central. So you see him here. He's getting on the ball a little bit more, and he's going to look to carry the ball. Whereas Rodri's sitting in that kind of midfield position, he's going to want to dictate play a lot more than, say, Kovacic, where he's going to want to drive with it, bring it forward, take it probably into more dangerous positions where he can get dispossessed, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. When it works really well. So you'll see what happens is he wants to drive into this area here, which is where he's going. Obviously, as a Chelsea fan, you see Caicedo here and Caicedo and Enzo, and these are the two players that Chelsea brought in to replace Kovacic. So it's obviously not nice seeing this happen, but as we progress things on, you'll see what he does, and this is what he does is, in a lot of games, is he brings the ball forward and carries it. So as we bring it on, there's this big gap being opened up by Kovacic in here, and he's driving in, looking for space. He's looking for maybe to do a 1-2 with, say, Haaland, or trying to pass it out wide. But because of the ability that he has, he's able to carry the ball and carry the ball well. And then he obviously brings it up to the edge of the penalty box. Probably Chelsea, maybe defending wise, someone should have came out to him, but it's a really good finish in the end, and City go on to win that game 2-0. So it's a strength of Kovacic. It's something that we have seen more as City have progressed throughout the season, but it is also a big issue for City and how they are playing football at the minute. So we're bringing on to the next one then. So the signs are there from a City perspective, and this is the game against Wolves, where Kovacic was having to do a lot more defending and City were a lot more exposed, and this is one of the examples. So Kovacic is obviously playing in that DM role, and he's being asked to shuffle across here, which he does well. So he gets across, cuts down the overlap, and he does what he should do. So you can see him here. But as we progress things on, what we'll start to see is his awareness is not the same as Rodri. He doesn't know when to push in or make that right movement, and it's what's getting him caught out. So as we move it on, you'll see Aït-Nouri goes in the overlap, and Cunha comes inside. So Cunha's on the back of now Kovacic, and he can't see him. He's still looking at the ball. So that's the way Rodri would read that game. He wouldn't get exposed in the same way. Kovacic, as a forward-thinking player and someone who wants to get on the ball, he's not used to being in that position where if someone runs off the back of him, he's at the back four. So as we progress on then, Wolves work the ball really well. You see Kovacic now, he's starting to lag behind, and he's in that position here. Cunha then gets a shot away. So it's just another example of teams getting at Man City so easily in terms of Kovacic obviously being that defensive midfielder, and he just doesn't have the same capabilities as a Rodri. So when we talk about Man City, we talk about them dominating the ball, always in possession, killing teams, and we're just not seeing it this year, which is a big issue. And we're going to talk about obviously the age of the players. You have the likes of Gundogan, Kovacic, Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne. These are all players that were really good once upon a time, but they definitely do not have the legs to be able to get around the pitch, especially when they're getting asked to do a lot more work than they usually should have. This is a good example where they were playing Bournemouth, and Bournemouth absolutely killed them this day. They absolutely annihilated them. There's a reason for that. It's because Bournemouth were playing to their strengths. They were shuffling across, and then when someone had the ball that they thought they could press onto, they started to press, and Man City were struggling to play out. But this is just one play where the ball was played over the top, and this is where the goal comes from, the second goal. So Semenyo picks it up here. What you don't want happening is, you don't want them running into this space, but it's just so easy for teams to get into this area now at the minute against City, and that's what they're doing. So Semenyo takes a touch and basically goes all the way up. Akanji is having to come out, so City are already stretched at the back. You see it's going to go 3-on-3 now. So Semenyo plays a lovely pass in here around Walker. And then this is where the goal comes from. So they put a cross in, and Evan Nielsen is there to get it into the net. And it's a really well worked goal from Bournemouth. But City will be kicking themselves as to how they let it happen, because it's not something that we're used to, where City getting turned over so easily. So if we move it on to the game that probably started it all, the thing was Manchester City were having to come out in the second half. Arsenal were down to 10 men, and what we've seen a lot of was this side-to-side actions where Man City were having to move the ball left to right, but the players that were getting on the ball were Diaz, Akanji, Walker, and they were really struggling to get their midfielders into the game and their wingers into the game. Now, credit to Arsenal. Arsenal defended really, really well, but you can see, so Walker's getting the ball here, not the person that you want on the ball in this position. He takes a shot and it just kind of runs out for a corner, takes a deflection and goes out. And these are not the players that you want in these types of positions. And this is what Man City are seeing a lot of. They're having to get Gvardiol, Diaz, and I'm going to show you a few more examples. Walker, these are the players getting on the ball and trying to create chances. This is another example. Diaz then over here with the ball, looking for the pass. What he does is he just pumps one in. Foden tries to get onto the end of it, and it comes to nothing in the end. Gvardiol has a shot, but it's saved by Raya. And they're kind of just living off scraps. And this game against Arsenal is the one that started it all. Here we are again, another example of Man City struggling to break down an opposition team. And this is against Wolves, who were bottom of the league at this time. And Diaz is lining up a shot here. It's pushed around the corner well by Jose Sa in goal. But it's the same thing over and over again. And this is a repeat of, you're going to see it against Brighton. We've seen it against Sporting, against Spurs. Their players are not creating the chances that we're used to with this Man City team, and that's why they're starting to struggle to score goals. Like Haaland, I think this year has scored 50% of Man City's goals, which is the most that he's ever been contributing towards the team. And I know he scores lots of goals, but others were chipping in, and we're not seeing that this season for this reason. So we talked about Man City's defenders, we talked about Kovacic, we talked about their build-up play and what's causing these issues. But here I want to talk about the wingers specifically, and the reason being is, before we would have been used to seeing Man City with the wingers that they had in Mahrez, Grealish when he was that year, when the year they won the treble, he was unbelievable. And then obviously Sterling when he was one of the best players in that Man City side that was competing with Liverpool for so long. And this year they have Doku and Savinho. It's kind of been the two that he went with. And Savinho definitely has bundles of ability, similar with Doku. You can definitely see the talent that they have, but the issue is that they're not showing it enough, especially to the levels of, say, a Sterling or a Mahrez, if that's what we want to make the comparison to. But this is a good example where Savinho actually does well here. So this is the ability that he has, and he picks the ball up just here in front of Guardiola. This is against Arsenal. It takes a really good touch into the danger area, so he cuts out three players all at once, and we'll move it on to the next scene, and this is where the goal comes from for Haaland. So he carries it forward, does really well, opens it up. Maybe Arsenal should do better defensively, but that's the ball there. Haaland's on his bike, as we've seen him so many times, and he does really well to finish and get the goal. But this is the type of level of consistency that you need from City forwards, especially their wingers, because Haaland is not going to be like someone who's going to be heavily involved in the game. So City are going to rely on their wingers and their midfielders running into the box to create these chances. And so far we haven't seen enough of that this season with Savinho and Doku specifically. They want to carry the ball a lot more, and I think they have to in the way City are playing at the minute, and that's one of the reasons the midfielders maybe aren't performing to the level that they are, and that we're seeing Savinho and Doku having to carry the ball, which is not what you want. This is not what Guardiola wants. He wants his midfielders running to the box, creating overlaps, and then they want to get it to the byline and then drill it back. But this is good play from Savinho, and definitely the talent that he has, but we need to see it on a more consistent basis. Now, people have tried to say that Haaland is obviously a part of this issue, and yes and no. Haaland is being asked to play a very specific role in this Man City team. He's not being asked to move left and right and try and get involved in the build-up. He is just to sit there and wait, and when the chances arrive, he's to put them in the back of the net. Right now, the chances aren't arriving, so he's having to live off scraps, and people are saying that he needs to get more involved in the game. That's not what Guardiola wants from him. So, right now, obviously, we can't question Guardiola. Like, he is a man that has redefined football the last few years. But the way City are playing and the players that they have right now, Rodri is the big key. He's obviously the one that's the biggest miss. But the rest of the players aren't stepping up to the levels that they have. De Bruyne has been non-existent. Foden struggled. Haaland, obviously, as I said, if he gets chances, he'll score goals. But the likes of Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, these players that Guardiola has relied on for numerous years, aren't performing to the levels that is needed in order to possibly get them over the line. Now, Man City are Man City, and they could go into the second half of the season and just steamroll teams and win 15 games in a row. That's the way they are. That's the way they play. But I think this year is slightly different because before you would have seen the signs that they were creating the chances, but this season they're not creating the chances and teams are getting at them. Let me know in the comments, do you think Guardiola will be able to get it back? Do you think Man City might strengthen in the January transfer window? Because these are all the questions that will be asked of him going forward, and this is a huge month for Guardiola and City, because if they do, say, they're playing Spurs next at home, if they lose that game or draw that game, they could be potentially 7 or 8 points behind Liverpool, and then they have to travel to Anfield to play them. So you're talking about nearly another 6-point swing. You're talking about 10, 11 points going into Christmas, which, even for Man City, that is a huge, huge gap to close.